Make way for the Lord Chancellor.
Lord Chancellor, would you repeat the words of the affirmations after me?
I, David Michael Gauke,
do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm
do solemnly and sincerely and truly declare and affirm
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II,
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II,
her heirs and successors,
according to law.
I
David Michael Gauke,
do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm
do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm
that I will well and truly serve our Sovereign Lady Queen Elizabeth II
our Sovereign Lady Queen Elizabeth II
in the office of Lord High Chancellor of Great Britain.
in the office of Lord High Chancellor of Great Britain.
I
David Michael Gauke,
do solemnly, sincerely and truly
do solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm that in the office of Lord High Chancellor of Great Britain
that in the office of Lord High Chancellor of
I will respect the rule of law, defend the independence of the judiciary, and discharge my duty
to
ensure the provision of resources
ensure the provision of resources
for the efficient and effective support
of the
courts for which I am responsible. And Lord Chancellor, would you sign the three affirmations and the book in front of you?
My Lord Chancellor, it is my great pleasure to welcome you here today on behalf of Her Majesty's judges and to receive your affirmations on taking office as Lord High Chancellor of Great Britain. It is an historic office, a great office of state, and an office of single constitutional importance. We are particularly delighted to welcome your mother Susan, wife Rachel, and sons William, Robert, and Henry to share in our pleasure at witnessing the beginnings of the next step in your most distinguished career. The offices of Lord Chancellor and Lord Keeper of the Great Seal are ancient, but this ceremony is a recent development that reflects the constitutional evolution of the office in recent times. We greet you in our full ceremonial robes, not that often worn, perhaps a little overdressed for some. But the solemnity of this occasion is designed to reflect the most important position that the office of Lord Chancellor occupies in our constitutional settlement. That importance is reflected in the statutory oaths which we have just heard. All ministers are required by the Constitutional Reform Act to uphold the independence of the judiciary. But you, my Lord Chancellor, have a special duty to defend that independence, as well as to respect the rule of law and ensure the necessary resources for the courts and tribunals for which you are responsible. Your appointment had many lawyers and legal historians dusting down their copies of Lord Campbell's great work, The Lives of the Lord Chancellors. He was, of course, Lord Chancellor himself, and I might add before that, Lord Chief Justice. His work on the lives of the Chief Justices, alas, attracts rather less attention. Lord Campbell's work is consulted because parallels may be found between any new Lord Chancellor and one or more of his or her predecessors. My Lord Chancellor, you are an East Anglian man, indeed an Ipswich man, and was there educated at Northgate High School. You are not, of course, the first Lord Chancellor from Ipswich. One of that town's most famous sons was Thomas Wolsey, Cardinal Archbishop of York and Lord Chancellor to Henry VIII. Sadly, the emoluments of your office will not enable you to live in the style to which he became accustomed, to build palaces or endow schools and colleges. From Ipswich, you went to St Edmund Hall, Oxford, to study law. You determined on a career in the law and qualified as a solicitor, training with Richard's Butler, and then practicing in corporate law with Macfarlane's from 1997 to 2005. But the lure of politics was strong. In 2005, you were elected as Member of Parliament for South West Hertfordshire, a seat you have held at each of the subsequent general elections. You served on both the Procedure Select Committee and the Treasury Select Committee before being appointed a Shadow Treasury Minister in 2007. That experience, my Lord Chancellor, propelled you to the Treasury following the general election in 2010. You were appointed Exchequer Secretary, an office you held until 2014. You then became Financial Secretary in 2014, before entering the Cabinet as Chief Secretary to the Treasury in 2016. You slipped free of the Treasury last year when you were appointed as Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. One question which excited the legal Twitterati 10 days ago, when your appointment was announced, was whether you are the first solicitor to be Lord Chancellor. One suggestion that was mooted was that Sir Thomas More had started life as a solicitor. That caused collective apoplexy in Lincoln's Inn and does not appear to have been the case. A more hopeful possibility was Edward Lord Thurlow. He was Lord Chancellor for 14 years, between 1778 and 1792, under 4 different prime ministers. He certainly did articles with a solicitor. At the time, that was a common feature of the training of barristers, but I believe that he did not qualify as a solicitor. In the 19th century, another possibility was Edward Sugden, Lord St Leonard's. He was Lord Chancellor for a brief 10 months in 1852, much ahead of his time in serving for months rather than years. He began his career working as a solicitor's clerk, but he too did not qualify and was instead called to the bar. More promising still was Thomas Wilde, Lord Truro. In 1805, he was admitted as an attorney. That was undoubtedly the equivalent of a solicitor. That side of the profession was divided between solicitors and attorneys, solicitors practicing in the equity courts and attorneys practicing in the common law courts. That distinction was swept away in the 1870s, along with many other cobwebs surrounding the legal profession and our courts, and the single profession of solicitor emerged. But, my Lord Chancellor, I readily recognise that entering an equivalent profession is not the same as qualifying as a solicitor. So, with some confidence, but subject to contradiction from the President of the Law Society or 1,000 tweets before we leave court, we can take it that you are indeed the first solicitor to have achieved the great office of Lord Chancellor. That is a distinct achievement of which both you and the profession can be justly proud. Your legal experience as a solicitor will bring fresh insight and a new perspective as you discharge the obligations and responsibilities of your office. Your work as a solicitor will also have left you with a clear understanding of the central importance of well-functioning and properly funded courts and tribunals, and of a vigorous legal profession in securing the rule of law and access to justice, both of which underpin social and economic growth and stability. As we prepare to leave the European Union, we must ensure that appropriate legal instruments are in place to provide necessary continuity and to support our courts and legal profession in their preeminent position in international and commercial dispute resolution. You will also understand the importance of promoting English law as the law of choice for contracts worldwide and the flexibility that the common law offers in a fast developing world. One question which few people seem to have asked is whether you are the first Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, or equivalent, to have been appointed Lord Chancellor. I think not. In October 1944, Sir William Jowett was appointed Minister of National Insurance at the head of the then newly formed Ministry of National Insurance in the wartime coalition government. The Department of Work and Pensions is the lineal descendant of that ministry. Sir William remained there for only 7 months. That has a familiar ring. But following the general election in 1945, he was appointed Lord Chancellor by Clement Attlee. You too, my Lord Chancellor, served for 7 months at the head of the Department of Work and Pensions, and you too have been appointed Lord Chancellor. Lord Jowett, as he became, remained Lord Chancellor until the next general election in 1951, a period of 6 years. Might I be allowed to whisper that stability in office of that sort has its advantages? We now have fixed-term parliaments, subject, of course, to events, and the next is scheduled for 2022. We look forward in the years ahead to developing a strong, productive, and harmonious working relationship with you. My Lord Chancellor, on behalf of the judiciary, I congratulate you and welcome you warmly to your office.
Mr. Attorney, I'd like to thank the Lord Chief Justice for that warm welcome, and I look forward to working with you and other members of the bench. I'd also like to start by thanking my predecessor and cabinet colleague, David Lidington, who I think quickly established himself as an effective Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State. I very much hope to emulate his speedy grasp of such an important constitutional role. Being appointed as Lord Chancellor is a huge honour and deeply humbling. Dare I say, it is also a little daunting, especially when you look back at some of the previous custodians of this historic title over the centuries. In light of such an illustrious roll call of historical figures, I think it is only natural for a new incumbent to look for a familiar reference point. And as the Lord Chief Justice has reminded us, a former Lord Chancellor from my hometown of Ipswich was none other than Cardinal Wolsey, an auspicious connection given he went on to serve as Lord Chancellor for 14 years. My enthusiasm was, however, a little tempered when I recalled how Wolsey's time as Lord Chancellor was made fraught through dealing with Henry VIII. Stripped of his title and his wealth, he faced charges of treason after an unsuccessful attempt to negotiate a settlement with a powerful European supranational organisation. Thankfully, not all the duties exercised by Cardinal Wolsey continue to fall on the shoulders of the Lord Chancellor. So let me turn to the specific responsibilities I have affirmed to uphold today. Defending the independence of the judiciary and respecting the rule of law, that is the foundation of our democracy, our way of life, and the safeguard of fairness and freedom in our society. The pomp and pageantry may be centuries old, but what they represent, forged from 900 years of history, remain relevant and important today. You, the judiciary, are at the heart of the rule of law. You uphold and exercise that every day in the judgments and decisions you make, and in being called upon to make decisions on some of the most difficult moral and technical issues of our time. It is a job that requires expertise and deep knowledge, but your task also requires independence from the other branches of the state. You must be free to make decisions without fear or favour and without undue influence. That's why I take seriously the solemn affirmation I have made today to defend the independence and to respect the rule of law. This commitment also includes ensuring efficient and effective support for courts. I want people to have confidence in every part of their justice system. That means crimes being properly investigated. It means effective prosecutions where there is sufficient evidence and it is in the public interest. It means courts handing down sentences that fit the crime. It also means a justice system that supports victims and ensures a smooth and efficient process for litigants, for example, through new technology and greater innovation. I look forward to working closely with the Lord Chief Justice and senior judiciary to build on the important work that is already underway to reform and modernise our courts and tribunal system and to make this a reality. Whether in criminal or civil law, the UK's legal system is respected around the world, something that I've seen for myself having worked in corporate law. As a trainee solicitor over 20 years ago, I was struck working on a shipping litigation case. It was an English tribunal applying English law that was determining a dispute involving cargo being shipped across the Pacific on a Greek-owned ship with, if I recall correctly, an Indonesian crew. The only apparent connection to the UK was that the contracts were under English law and determined by English tribunals. That was the case then, it's the case now, and it will continue to be the case after we leave the European Union, because the UK leads the way in global legal services. English law and UK courts provide the certainty, clarity, and flexibility that clients from around the world want. I know just how important this sector is, not just for London, but for cities and regions across the United Kingdom. That's why I want an outcome from our negotiations with the European Union that is good for our legal system and good for our position as a provider of legal services around the world. One that protects and promotes a strong and successful legal services sector. That means ensuring close and comprehensive arrangements for civil judicial cooperation with the EU after Brexit. It means a legal services sector that benefits from and serves as a catalyst for future trade. I want to see London continue to be an international hub for finance and legal services, but also legal services continuing to grow and thrive in regional centres serving as specialist hubs. I look forward to working with the legal services sector and the judiciary to build on our Legal Services Are Great campaign launched last year to promote the UK's legal services on the world stage. The reputation of our legal services is underpinned by our world-leading judiciary, respected for its expertise and its independence. As Lord Chancellor, I look forward to working with you, Lord Chief Justice, and other senior members of the judiciary to ensure we continue to attract exceptional and talented people in order for it to remain strong, free from improper influence and truly independent, indeed to remain the envy of the world. Now, I mentioned Cardinal Wolsey managed 14 years as Lord Chancellor. With 7 years at the Treasury, 7 months at DWP, and having just completed my first 7 days at the Ministry of Justice, that may be an ambitious record to match. Although I have read on Twitter and elsewhere that I have set a record of my own for being the first solicitor to be appointed Lord Chancellor, as indeed you mentioned, Lord Chief Justice. I'm pleased that so far, at least, this record remains intact, even after such careful and scrupulous deliberation from you, Lord Chief Justice. They do say that the law is an iterative process, so I wait to be revised. But what I can commit to today is that during my time as Lord Chancellor, I will be ambitious for our country's legal services. I will be steadfast in my commitment to defend the independence of the judiciary and respect the rule of law. And I will be determined in our work to create a justice system that is open to all, a justice system that everyone in the country can have confidence in, and one that lives up to the deep-rooted sense of justice and fairness the United Kingdom is known for around the world. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney.
My Lord, this ceremony highlights the advantages in background and in training that a new Lord Chancellor brings to the role. In the case of this Lord Chancellor, many have been mentioned already, but not, I think, all. True it is that he is a lawyer, which, though a novelty in the recent history of the role, could nonetheless have its advantages. Of much greater significance, however, I suggest, is David's experience in the Treasury, and not just for the obvious reasons. Knowing how the Treasury approves spending, or more often don't, will be a real advantage in the next spending round in which he will participate on behalf of the justice system. But it may also assist in his most important responsibility, of which I know he is acutely aware, to defend the independence of the judiciary and uphold the rule of law. And to do so within government is not always an easy task. It occasionally involves telling political colleagues they cannot do as they wish. Luckily, however, telling fellow ministers they can't have what they want is the daily business of the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. That is a role David fulfilled with great distinction. Crucially, of course, the Lord Chancellor has responsibility for the prison system, and in this, the current Lord Chancellor has an unusual advantage. I suspect he is the only Lord Chancellor, in modern times at least, to have spent the night in a cell. And lest anyone get the wrong idea, it was only to raise money for a local hospice in his constituency, but I have no doubt the experience will nonetheless be valuable. My Lord, David and I were elected to Parliament on the same day, and over the last 12 years we've spent in Parliament together, I've been able to observe his impressive intellect, his sound judgment, and his application to the roles in which he has served. My Lord, they are qualities from which we shall all benefit during his tenure as Lord Chancellor, and I welcome him warmly to the role.
Mr. Chairman.
My Lord, it is an honour and a privilege for me, on behalf of the Bar of England and Wales, to join your Lordship and Mr. Attorney in welcoming the new Lord Chancellor this morning. It's an honour that's been conferred on all recent chairs of the Bar, but that in no way diminishes the significance and importance of the role of the Lord Chancellor. No one at the Bar, my Lord, is in any doubt that adherence to the rule of law has been critical in our largely written constitution, or that this remains as important as ever. It is what has enabled us to build a stable and prosperous society. It has been a counterbalance to the supremacy of Parliament and to historical prerogatives, ensuring that they are not misused and keeping the power of the state over our citizens and others within proper bounds. It has also ensured due process and observance by the executive of the proper limits of the powers granted by Parliament. And as your Lordship has said, it has secured the strength and the independence of our judiciary under your leadership. It is our adherence to the rule of law, both practically and philosophically, and both in the United Kingdom and overseas, that through that we have set an example to the world. In too many nations, the rule of law remains an aspiration and not a reality. In too many nations, the rule of law is under threat. And their example, my Lord, reminds us of what society might look like without the rule of law. It shows us what we have to lose and why we must never take it for granted. It shows us, too, its potential fragility if it is not constantly recognised, applied, and reinforced. That recognition, application, and reinforcement needs to take place not just in our courts, but also in Parliament, and in government, and in our common discourse. And it must extend not just to the rule of law itself, but also to the independence of the judiciary and to access to justice in the courts over which our judges preside. It falls to the Lord Chancellor to be their champion and their defender around the cabinet table, in the chambers and corridors in Westminster, in the public domain, and on the international stage. Their nature is such that their defence requires more of a Lord Chancellor in more difficult times. And Lord, these are onerous duties and heavy responsibilities of a different order from those borne by Secretaries of State. And their performance depends on the experience, abilities and character of the holder of the office of Lord Chancellor. Comforted by the Lord Chancellor's words this morning, we are confident that in the person of Mr. Gauke, we have a Lord Chancellor with the understanding and the personal qualities that the role demands, and who brings with him the invaluable experience Mr. Attorney has many years in the Treasury that should stand him in good stead in securing the resources that justice requires in our nation. The Bar of England and Wales I look forward, to working with our new Lord Chancellor to assist him in performing those duties and responsibilities and in carrying a message to the world about our undiminished strengths in law and justice. We wish him well and a long and successful tenure.
Mr. President.
My Lord, as President of the Law Society of England and Wales, on behalf of the Society and the solicitor's profession, I am delighted that Her Majesty has seen fit to appoint you as Lord Chancellor. Given that the office goes back at least to Norman times, it has taken a very long time for a member of our profession to occupy this role. As Lord Chancellor, you are the highest ranking of all the great officers of state, save only for the Lord High Steward. However, despite what the government claims are historically high employment figures, that position has remained vacant for several centuries. So you are basically now the main man. We are very proud and delighted that a solicitor now holds such high legal and political office, and I in no way seek to contradict the Lord Chief Justice. You are indeed the first solicitor ever appointed to this role. Following confirmation of your appointment, you quickly stated via Twitter that justice is the cornerstone of our democracy and a key part of a fairer society, and that you would continue driving the work of your predecessors. The duties of a Lord Chancellor go beyond those of a Secretary of State. They go beyond responsibility to the Cabinet or to the department, because they include a duty to serve the interests of justice, to protect the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary. It goes without saying that our profession, like others, is faced with unprecedented structural, economic and regulatory challenges as the country withdraws from the European Union. But together with colleagues from the judiciary and the bar, the Law Society is here to support the government in addressing these challenges. Our expertise, our knowledge and our resources are at your disposal. We are ready, willing and able to assist you to ensure that the economic contribution of the legal services sector is uncompromised and the integrity of our system of justice is retained. As His Lordship has said, you practiced in the city firm Macfarlane's, where you focused exclusively on financial services regulation. The current senior partner, Charles Martin, tells us, "We are certain that his sound and extensive knowledge of the law and the legal world will equip him to deal with important aspects in his role as Lord Chancellor." And besides the extensive knowledge of financial services and tax law, you have other interests which help you to keep your feet firmly on the ground and close to your constituents in southwest Hertfordshire. You are rumoured to be an avid cricket fan, as well as a lifelong supporter of Ipswich Town FC, the Tractor Boys, a state of affairs on which, as a fellow supporter of a championship team, you have my utmost sympathy. It is perhaps worth noting that in Mick McCarthy, you have the longest-serving manager in the championship. And in passing, I noticed that you did what we couldn't do and you beat Leeds last Saturday. Indeed, as we speak, the Tractor Boys will be preparing to travel up to the northwest, where on Saturday they will be playing another great team fallen on hard times. And I appreciate that getting up to speed with the new job will be all-consuming. But should you be able to ease away from the duties of state then I would be delighted to buy you a pint of the finest Northern Bitter at half-time. And I think I can say with some confidence that for you, it will not be anything like the 9-0 defeat you witnessed at the hands of another Northwestern side in 1994, which I understand still stands as a Premier League record. I'm told that the counselling was successful. Lord Chancellor, we welcome you to this great office of state and look forward to working with you in delivering our shared aims of upholding the rule of law and supporting access to justice for all our citizens. We very much hope that, unlike some of your predecessors, you will emulate the manager of the Tractor Boys and enjoy a lengthy and successful tenure in the post.
My Lord, I move that these proceedings be recorded in the books of the Queen's remembrance.
So be it.
Rise.